The wind was already getting stronger when 3 HOA trucks stopped in front of my driveway. One woman stepped out first, wearing a bright red coat and carrying a folder like she owned the whole county. "Remove that fuel tank today," she shouted before I even reached my porch. "It's ugly, it's against HOA rules. And your neighbors don't want to look at it." I looked at the small emergency diesel tank sitting behind my barn. It wasn't leaking. It wasn't making noise. It was hidden behind a wooden fence. It had been there for years because our mountain town lost power almost every winter. "I'll remove it when you show me the rule that applies to my property," I answered. She smiled like she had already won. "Oh, I don't need to. You'll receive a fine every day until it's gone." She taped a bright orange violation notice on my gate and walked away while her board members laughed. One of them even took pictures as if they had just caught a criminal. They had no idea I had already checked every county record before buying this land. I stayed calm. Because people who know the truth never need to shout. My neighbor, Mr. Collins, quietly walked over after they left. "Don't fight them," he whispered. "They've made 3 families give up already. They'll bury you in fines." I folded the notice and slipped it into my jacket. "They're counting on fear," I said. "That's their biggest mistake." For the next 2 weeks, the letters kept coming. $500. Then $1,000. Then another warning saying they would hire contractors to remove the tank themselves if I refused. The strange part? None of the letters mentioned a single law. Only HOA policy. That didn't make sense. Because my land sat just outside the official HOA boundary. I had the survey, the county map, and the deed locked inside my safe. Still, I said nothing. I wanted them to keep digging. Then something happened that made this whole fight even stranger. One evening I came home and found fresh tire tracks leading to my fuel tank. Someone had opened the locked valve cover. Nothing had been stolen. But someone had definitely been there. The security cameras should have explained everything. Instead, they raised a question that made my stomach drop. At exactly 2:13 a.m., one of the cameras showed 2 people wearing HOA jackets standing beside my emergency fuel tank. And one of them was holding a wrench. Months before winter arrived, I quietly gave the sheriff's office a copy of the security footage. The deputies told me not to confront anyone. Instead, they suggested I leave everything exactly as it was while they looked into the late-night visit. I agreed. If the HOA wanted to keep making mistakes, I wasn't going to stop them. A week later, the HOA president showed up with 2 contractors and another stack of violation papers. "Last warning," she said. "Either you remove that tank today, or we will." I stepped aside and calmly asked one question. "Can you show me one document proving you have authority over my land?" She refused to answer. Instead, she ordered the contractors to start measuring the tank. Before anyone touched it, 2 sheriff's deputies pulled into the driveway. One deputy asked the HOA president for proof that my property belonged to the HOA. She searched through her folder. But every map stopped at the property line. And my land was clearly outside it. The contractors immediately backed away. One even admitted he had been told the property was inside the neighborhood. The deputy warned everyone that entering my land without permission could become criminal trespassing. The HOA president argued, yelled, and blamed everyone except herself. Then the deputy played a short clip from my security camera. It showed 2 HOA board members opening the locked cover on my emergency fuel tank in the middle of the night. Their faces were impossible to deny. The investigation moved fast. The board members claimed they were inspecting the tank. But they had no legal authority to inspect anything on my property. Worse, investigators found emails showing the HOA planned to remove the tank while I was away and send me the bill afterward. Those emails became powerful evidence. The HOA's lawyer suddenly stopped defending the board and advised them to settle before the case became even worse. I filed a lawsuit for trespassing, property interference, and harassment. During the hearings, county officials confirmed what I had known from the beginning. My property had never been part of the HOA. For years, the board had been sending threatening letters to homeowners near the boundary without checking the official records. Several neighbors came forward with similar stories. What started as my fight quickly became a much bigger investigation into the board's actions. Then winter arrived. The weather reports warned about the biggest blizzard in decades. Snow buried roads, power lines snapped, and the entire area lost electricity. Gas stations closed within hours because their pumps had no power. Home heating systems failed across the community. Families sat in freezing houses, hoping someone could help. My home stayed warm. The emergency generator started exactly as it was designed to. The fuel tank the HOA wanted removed kept my lights on, my heat running, and my water flowing. I also had enough fuel to help others. Late that evening, someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, the HOA president was standing there with several board members behind her. Their expensive coats were covered in snow. They looked exhausted. "Our generator is out of fuel," she said quietly. "The community warming center is losing power. We need your help." For a long moment, nobody spoke. This was the same person who had tried to fine me into removing the very tank that could now save them. I could have slammed the door. Instead, I simply said, "Bring your fuel containers." All night long, I shared fuel with emergency workers, elderly neighbors, and families with small children. I never asked who had supported the HOA or who had complained about me. The storm didn't care about politics or pride, and neither did I. When the roads finally reopened, the story spread across the county. News stations reported how the only reliable emergency fuel supply in the area had belonged to the men the HOA tried to punish. Public pressure exploded. Homeowners voted to remove the entire HOA board. The president resigned before the final vote. The association later paid a financial settlement, erased every fake fine they had issued to me, and publicly admitted my property had never been under their authority. Months later, one neighbor asked why I helped people who had treated me so badly. I smiled and looked at the fuel tank still standing behind the fence. "The tank was never the problem," I said. "The real problem was people who thought power mattered more than truth." And after that winter, nobody ever questioned why it was there again.